Well, when I have the nostalgia of Italian food, I go to Pomo. Pomo is an incredible pizzeria where it's possible to find the true Italian pizza. I was really astonished. It was really astonishing because what they give to the clients is extremely good pizza. Because they use Buffalo Mozzarella. You see, the pizza is a very simple eating, but you need the right food, the right ingredients. One is Buffalo Mozzarella, and with this Buffalo Mozzarella it's produced here. Then they use a very good Italian tomato sauce. And so I think this is the secret for them, because also the pizza dough it's very light. It's very light. So when I need to dip myself in the Italian kitchen, I go there, and there I can find also ravioli with the pesto. Pesto is an incredible sauce, very simple, made with basil leaves and the seeds of trees which grow in Italy. It's pine. It's a pine trees, and the garlic. It's extremely tasty.
So it was sort of an accidental choice. When I first came back after completing my studies, I got involved in with my parents' textile business. And it was a family-owned business, and it was sort of expected that all the sons and cousins, they would all get involved, and that was the way it was supposed to be. But I wanted to do something a bit different, and that was back in 2004 that we opened the first Pompeii. And it came about as a project between, like a collaboration or a partnership between myself and my childhood friend Kashif Sattar. And we thought it would be something just to occupy us, maybe give us a little additional income. At that point, did not think that it would become a change or a career trajectory that would eventually lead to where we are today. It was never intended to be that, but Alhamdulillah, it's turned out that way. Well, I did my undergraduate in business operations and marketing from Indiana University in Bloomington. And then I worked for a year in Chicago, and then started an MBA program. So when I came back, I had sort of worked and studied, and I was away from Pakistan for almost 7 to 8 years. And I believe that period also taught me a bit about the restaurant industry, and taught me a bit about food and cooking, because I took an interest in cooking as many people do when they're in college. They miss the food we eat at home, so we try to replicate recipes, or we try to get inspired by new things. So I guess the interest in cooking came in those years, in the years at college and while working. So there's been a change. So in the very beginning, as I said, when we first opened Pompeii, my father thought that, you know, if you want to do this, it's fine, so long as we also can expect you to give some time to the family business. But as things have a way of working out, sometimes we've come to a point where that the family business in textiles, we divested out of it, and I think I can comfortably say that both my father and my mother are glad that I did what I wanted to do, because sometimes if you follow your own path a little bit, it can be challenging, it can be difficult, but it's also, if it works out, it's also much more fulfilling than just going through the motions, doing something that you may or may not, you know, have in your heart. So surprisingly, when these decisions were being made, when we were thinking of, okay, let's do a restaurant project, so there were some well-established good restaurants like Okra was there, Cafe Flow was functional and popular even in those days, as popular as it is now. But there was really no restaurant that did Italian cuisine specifically. There had been a place in Zamzama, if I remember correctly, the name was La Cucina, but it had closed down by this time, and there was also an Italian restaurant at Sheraton, but I believe, I'm not sure if it was still operating at that time or not. So the idea of Italian food it appealed to me. I liked the cuisine, I enjoyed eating Italian food. So it seemed like a good idea at the time, and I guess it turned out all right for us. The first Pompei was opened in 2004 in Zamzama. We were there for 3 years. It was a much smaller, much more intimate space. We then moved from there in 2007 to our current premises, which is at the Shapes Health Club compound near Kent Station. Why Pomo? So Pomo came about much later. So Pompei being 2004 and Pomo opened in 2018, so a huge difference. So the idea behind Pomo was to, while staying within the realm of Italian cuisine, to maybe do a more family-oriented, more child-friendly, more what you would say family casual dining at a more affordable, more accessible price point, and a much more basic interpretation of Italian cuisine. Not really comparable to what we do at Pompei. Of course, along the same inspiration of Italian food, but distinctly different in its own right, because we did not want to have the idea of cannibalizing our own sales from one place to the other. So I think we've got a number of excellent restaurants now. The restaurant scene, as you would say, in Karachi has really blossomed and developed over the past few years. So I think, I believe competition brings out the best in people. So with newer and better restaurants opening up, we have to be on our A game. We have to make sure that we don't fall behind. If the customer has better options, they will certainly gravitate towards those options. If not always, then at least some visits, and those visits will obviously take away from your business that may come to your outlet. So I think everybody tries their best. Everybody wants to grab onto the customer and retain them, and really the only way of doing it, because it's no longer the situation where people don't have choices. So because they have choices, and they have many choices, one has to really be on top of their standard, really be on top of their game. Otherwise, it's not easy to retain the customer. Well, I guess the very first step is to keep things as simple as possible. A common misconception is that any kind of food, whether it's Italian, Pakistani, French, whatever type of cuisine, at the heart of it, it's usually very simple. Most types of cuisine can be defined by a few things that differentiate it from other types of food. Usually it's a geographical influence depending on where we are, what produce grows in what country, what the climate allows. Colder environments will have a slightly more different focus on the type of food. Warmer climates, the food will distinctly be different. So I think what we've tried to do is we've taken, Italian cuisine is a very spread out and very lot of depth in it. But I think we've taken some basic elements, and what we've tried to do is to do those basics right. So maybe do a smaller menu, but whatever you do, just try to keep it as close to locked in or as close to perfect as possible, and try not to deviate from those basics by choosing the right ingredients all the time. But going back to the idea that the simpler you keep things, sometimes the easier it is to maintain that. When you start complicating things, the menu becomes too difficult, too many offerings, it starts to get difficult to keep track and to keep them all done right. So we tried to have most ingredients sourced locally. In fact, that's been one of the biggest challenges facing most restaurants now, as prices for imports have been increasing, as the rupee dollar parity is changing in favor of the dollar, the rupee is getting weaker, imports are getting more and more expensive. And as imports get more and more expensive, it becomes more difficult for us to keep our food cost under a certain limit. It also becomes very difficult to keep pace with the increases in prices. So prices are increasing for local goods as well, but the impact is definitely more on imported items. So we try to do mostly local sourcing as much as we possibly can. A real differentiation for us here at Pomo is that we from scratch make our own mozzarella, we make our own burrata from scratch, we make our own ricotta, starting from the bare bones basic, just starting with buffalo milk, and doing the whole process in-house on a daily basis. We make all the desserts in-house from scratch. We make a lot of our own pasta. Some things are very difficult to make, that spaghetti or penne, but all the flat pastas we make in-house ourselves. So we try to do as much as we can. We shy away from using imported flour, we use local flour. We shy away from using anything imported really. There are a few things that are difficult to avoid, but for the most part I think we are very comfortable using made in Pakistan products and made in Pakistan ingredients. Well, the thing is that to get the oven at the right temperature, you have to use a harder wood and a wood that burns at a higher rate. So what we tried to do is, instead of buying a lot of times easier to get like wood from packing crates and what what's called partal in Urdu. So it's like a very soft and nearly useless type of wood, and it burns off very quickly. So what we try to do is to try to get harder wood, so walnut, beech, and even if we have to buy scrap from the saw yards, it's still better than to buy better as compared to buying cheaper and more, how do we say it, less dense wood. So the denser and harder the wood, the higher rate it burns at. So it gives you the desired temperature and retains the desired temperature longer. I guess this is the biggest challenge. I think for any restaurateur, not only in Karachi but anywhere in Pakistan, the biggest challenge is the staff, because the staff is the heart and soul of your operation. Without the right front of house staff, without the right kitchen crew, even going to the dishwashing team, going to the cleaning team, the maintenance team, everybody has a role to play, and everybody plays a very crucial and essential role, because the whole situation can suddenly have a domino effect and break down if somebody is not playing their part. So I think what we've tried to do to make that challenge as easy to tackle as possible is we absolutely prefer and encourage hiring absolutely fresh candidates. People that have no restaurant experience are actually preferred, because they don't bring any baggage with them. So even if they're fresh, they're new, as long as they have a willingness to work, they have a willingness to learn, we feel that we can bring them into our fold a lot easier and make them part of our team in a much more cohesive way, rather than to try and untrain somebody who spent a lot of time at different restaurants and who's already got their mind made up as to how they have seen things being done in the past. So fresh candidates, people that are hardworking, people that have a willingness to work. We really foster and encourage that in our team. And then we try to retain the team as long as possible. See, surprisingly, we have customers that go to both places, but they go to both places for very different types of experiences. I believe that if I was to just say it in very simplistic words, it's just a mindset of what you want to experience on a particular day. If somebody is going, let's suppose for a second it's a family of 4, if they choose to have a quicker meal, a more casual meal, in a more lively environment, I think Pomo would be their choice. If they prefer to have a more elaborate, more lavish meal at a more relaxed pace, they want to enjoy the environment and the ambience at Pompeii, then their choice would obviously be, for that evening at least, it would be Pompeii. Yeah, so I think at the heart of it, what we try to do at Pomo at least, is spelt out right on our signboard outside. We try to do pizza, pasta, paninis, which are sandwiches, and then we do gelato, which is obviously just another word for ice cream, but a slightly different type of ice cream. The difference only is in the ratio of fat versus milk, meaning more cream versus less cream, different temperature, holding temperature. So that's what differentiates gelato from ice cream. But so that's the heart of what we do. So we do a range of pastas, and they can be from pastas that everybody is familiar with, like a classic red tomato sauce, or a cream and parmesan based Alfredo sauce, to a basil and pine nut based pesto sauce. So to very basic pastas, to slightly more complex dishes such as our tortellini, which is stuffed and shaped with cheese inside, and our ravioli with the burnt butter. So there's a wide spectrum, and I think even first time visitors need not be overwhelmed, because the menu has a lot of different things for different to suit different tastes. So if somebody wants to have a creamier, more satisfying dish, we have that. If somebody wants to have a slightly lighter option, there are many chicken and beef options that are on the lighter side. By lighter side, I only mean that they may not be served with big helpings of pasta. They may be not made with the same quantity of butter and cream as some of our other dishes. And then of course, pizza is perhaps one of the principal reasons why people come to Pomo. So we're very happy about the way our pizza is received by customers. It gives us great pleasure to see that they enjoy it and they find it different from pizza available in many different outlets. There was a time where having a wood burning oven was a novelty, but a lot of restaurants have wood burning ovens now. Our oven is a bit distinct. It burns at a much higher temperature. It was probably the biggest challenge in our setup was to how do we get an oven to come from Italy, because we felt that having had wood burning ovens at Pompeii, Karachi, and also at Pompeii, Lahore, we realized that there was a limit to how made in Pakistan ovens perform. It's not that they're not adequate, but it's just different. They just burn at a different temperature. They retain heat in a different manner. Plus, we wanted to do something specifically here geared towards the Neapolitan style of pizza, which requires a higher oven temperature, almost at 800 Fahrenheit is where you want to be. So I think that's kind of an idea of what our menu offers. So again, at the heart of it, different kinds of sandwiches, or panini as we may call them, different styles, types, shapes, sauces in pasta, a real large range of pizza offerings, and of course gelato and desserts. I think that's a summary of our menu. So I think we're very surprised sometimes when we launch something new, and we wonder whether or not this will be attractive to our core customer. And surprisingly, once people try something new, it may be very different from what they normally choose to eat. but people are willing to experiment, willing to try new things, just so long as their general comfort level or experience with the restaurant is positive. So what we've really noticed in the past is that, the first time somebody comes, they may just try a basic margherita pizza, which is the equivalent of like a basic tomato and cheese pizza. They may experiment with something different the next time they come. So if they try the penne with creamy tomato sauce the first time, they'll try a more adventurous choice for pasta the next time they come. So I think people, once they get a little trust factor with the offerings on your menu, if you're lucky enough where the customer says, oh, everything on the menu is good, then you'll find that they're actually trying a whole range of things at all times. Well, that's always the goal. So long as you can keep things tight and keep things at the standard and level you want them to be. It's a difficult time now. I think 3 to 4 years ago, when we first opened Pomo, if I had discussed this with you then, I would have said, we'd like to be able to open a second branch within 2 years. I mean, that would be my thought, or that would be my goal. But having said that, I think it's been a long time coming, so to speak, because we went through the pandemic period, affected by, as every country in the world was, we got affected by the pandemic in 2020 and 2021 partially. So that was kind of right in the middle of our Pomo life cycle. Once we came out of the COVID scenario, we kind of built our business back. Not only us, but I think every restaurant owner, most retail stores, most small businesses went through a very similar period of difficulty, and it was a challenging time. So I think once we are, I think the decision will kind of come on its own. When we do come to a point where the comfort level is there, as in, can we finance the expansion? Can we finance a second branch? And whether or not we feel that by opening a second one, will we cannibalize our sales here? So I think once those questions are answered, we look forward to an expansion. Just difficult to say when that will be.